The eyes are the window to the soul. So it's really important that when you're making your figures that you have as realistic of eyes as you possibly can, especially if your end product is to be realistic. Now, we're in the process of making a dog. We just did the armature yesterday. So I already have dog eyes made. So I'm actually needing to make some cat eyes. Now your process is going to be completely the same, and there will be some differences, which I will point out as I make them. Dog eyes are typically brown. So what you're going to need when creating these eyes for the dog that we're making is you're going to need a brown clay, a white clay, and a black clay. And I do suggest adding maybe some yellow as well. So with this eye cane that I'm making here is I have an olive green, a black, and a white, a roller, a blade, and then my X-Acto knife to cut my chunks off my clay blocks. I mixed the colors slowly and created even balls of how I want them to be within the eye. The left side is going to be around the pupil. The right side, as it gets lighter, is going to be the stuff that is on the outside of the eye. Now, as you see, I took some clay. I have scrap clay that I use, and I actually wipe my workspace, and I keep that scrap clay with me. Now, this ball here that I was getting ready to roll into a log actually had an air bubble in it. I could feel it. It clicks. It goes click, 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 click when I roll it out, so I had to restart. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your colors that you have in the order that you want them within the iris of the eye, and you're going to roll them into even logs, not lengthwise, but thickness-wise. And you're going to lay them out together and kind of push them together as you lay them out in the order that you want them to be. Now again, the closer to the pupil, the darker the colors. And as you go closer to the outside of the iris, the lighter the colors are going to get. Now at the last minute, I decided to add this yellow ochre, I have no idea how to pronounce it, but it's like a yellowish orange tan color. I decided to throw it in there at the last minute. But with a dog eye, it is brown, so different shades of brown will work. With a human eye, it's the same exact thing. You might want to add more colors. You don't have to necessarily have just this many logs. You can have various different colors throughout the eye, human eyes especially. As you see, I just took my scrap clay there and rubbed my roller down to make sure I got any loose clay that I have on there. Now I also have a pasta machine, so after I got this flat enough, I did put it through my pasta machine. I started on the thickest setting, which is number 1. I then moved it to 2 and ran it through, and then moved it to 3, and that was where I ended. Cut off the excess, and then cut it into quarters. Now, don't do what I did here. As you see, I have a flimsy blade. I love this thing. Don't do what I did here. I caught myself, thank goodness. But you lay them out, and then you want to stagger them on top of each other. However, you want your greens to be on the same side. So your lighter greens on one side and your darker greens on the other. Do not do what I did. And then I need to let you know, I'm not going to cut out my imperfections, okay? If I have to redo something, I want you to see it. The reason is because I want you to know that in order to get this right, you are going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. I am definitely not perfect. I might know what I'm doing, but that doesn't mean that I don't miss things. And it's so important for me to show you that the struggle is absolutely real, and I'm not going to cut that out for you. So here, after you staggered them, you then roll them out a little bit and then start pushing the sides in. It's the darker green or the darker colors. Remember, the left side is around the pupil. The right side is the outer part of the iris. So you want to push those darker colors in towards the middle. And you continue doing this. Now I don't know why, but for some reason my logs start getting all wavy. However, at the end product does not change. It's absolutely beautiful. I found an air bubble here. That's really important that if you start seeing little lumps within your clay here, to cut them out. You do not want air bubbles. It'll ruin your cane. Instead of being a nice, perfect log at the end, when you cut it, it's just going to crumble. So here, you're going to trim the edges, and you're just going to cut it in half. Remember, keep those colors together. The iris side on the outer iris on the right, and the inner iris on the left. And then you're going to smush the darker colors together. So you're still keeping those darker colors on the outside of your logs. And I always check while I'm working to make sure that all the different colors are on that elongated side there and that I'm not pushing those in, because I've actually done that before. Yes, I am human. I make mistakes. So just keep stretching it out, and then you're going to cut it into quarters again. And then you're going to place them on top of each other, keeping the same colors on top of one another. And now you're going to push those dark green sides. Again, make sure that you're pushing the green sides in and having the colorful side elongated. It's so important that you do that. You'll screw up your eye if you don't. And I always make sure that that's what I'm doing, and I'm keeping those dark sides on the top and bottom, not the sides, the top and bottom. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put the iris side, the side of the iris that is going to be next to your pupil, put that towards you. Okay, and then you're going to flatten that side and make your log into a triangle. So your higher side of your triangle is going to be the outer side of your iris. Then the side that's going to be around your pupil is going to be the side that gets smushed into the tip of the triangle. So what you're going to do, isn't that pretty? You're going to cut this into even slices. And it really depends how much clay you use and how big this log will be for you. I make miniatures, so a little bit of clay goes a long way for me. So I don't usually make huge canes with this. Take your black clay, and since you're making a dog, they have round pupils. So you're just going to make a black log. An even black log that's going to be the same height as the pieces that you just cut. Since I'm making a cat for this tutorial, because I needed green cat eyes for the cat I'm going to be doing next, I made my pupil into an oval. Now right here, connecting these and putting the iris to your pupil, it's very, very difficult, and I'm gonna admit that I've had to waste a lot of clay because of air bubbles within this area. And I think it's because of the fact that my pupil is actually oval and not round, but I do really try to make sure there's no air bubbles. And you know what, with this cane I did get an air bubble, and you can feel it when you're rolling it out, and you'll hear it go click, 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 and I cut it out immediately so it doesn't spread throughout my cane. So there is the beginning of the cane. The colors I thought turned out so pretty, but that's subjective. That's my opinion. And again, I work in 1/12 scale, so I have to really roll these down to about 1.5 millimeter. It's very, very, very tiny for the cats that I do. Now, cat eyes are obviously smaller than dog eyes. Unfortunately, when I did my dog eye, and just roll it out like this, but when I did my dog eye, I used Sculpey 3, and that stuff is too soft. Here I cut out the air bubble that I could feel, but it looks so pretty. And I use Sculpey 3, so my pupil actually elongated, and I actually fix it before I complete my dog eyes with acrylic ink. So don't use Sculpey 3 for your eyes. Please do not, or you're going to run into issues. That's why I use Cernit or I use Kato clay. So I actually shortened the log down even further so I can make it a manageable size for me to roll out into the 1/12 scale. So here it is, completely rolled out. It's about 1.5 millimeters. It's very tiny, and you're probably thinking, well, how can you see any of the detail within those eyes? That's so small. Well, I actually dome my eyes with UV resin, and when you dome it, it actually brings out the detail tremendously. It really makes it pop, which I will be showing you at the end of this video. So what I do here after I get it to my size, is I actually pre-bake it. And what I do is I bake it at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. I do not fully bake it, and it's much lower than what my package instructions say. The reason being is because I want it to be easily cut. So here it is, baked for that little bit of time. It looks amazing. It's strong. That's why I love Kato clay. Or not Kato, I'm sorry. Kato is very strong. That's why I love Cernit clay. It's very strong. And I use a flimsy, sharp blade to cut it. It works very well. I've tried a regular razor and it did not cut at all. It was really crappy. And then I use a dotting tool and this Lisa, I don't even want to try to pronounce it, UV resin. Here's my scrap clay that I use to clean up my spot. And what I do is that after I slice my little eyes, and you'll see here, is I place them slightly into my scrap clay so that I can dome them. Because if you don't do this, then they will stick to whatever you're holding the eye with, or they'll stick to whatever you're using to dome the eye with, and it's never fun. This is something I learned to do on my own because it was so frustrating trying to dome these and losing half the eyes that I'm trying to make because I have UV resin everywhere. So here I'm checking both sides and picking the side that I like best to show with the UV resin. And I just kind of push it in there a little bit. My slices are very thin. Yes, these eyes are very, very small. Remember, they are going in a cat, so cats in 1/12 scale are actually only about 1 inch tall or smaller. So I really need small eyes. So after that, I actually get my UV resin out here and I put a little bit on the tip of my dotting tool. Now the great thing about this Lisa UV resin is that it domes beautifully. It is absolutely beautiful when you dome it. It sticks right where you put it. It's not like water where it just runs everywhere. It domes so beautifully. Careful for air bubbles. It's very hard to see in these little teeny tiny eyes, and sometimes I don't notice any air bubbles until it's too late and I have them within my sculpture and my sculpture's baked and I look and then I have air bubbles in the eyes and I can see them. However, if you do get air bubbles on the outer edges, they do get covered with clay to make eyelids. So don't be too hard on yourself. Practice always makes progress. I never say perfect because even the greatest artists, they are still learning something new. It makes progress, and that's how you learn to do this. After the UV resin is added to the eyes, I have a UV lamp, a nail lamp that I use to cure it, but you can also put it in the window, take it outside. I can't take it outside because I live in Minnesota, and yesterday morning was beautiful. It was 57 degrees when I woke up, and then by last night, 8 o'clock p.m., it was blizzarding out with snow and 20 degrees. So here's those eyes. That's what they look like before I cure them. So I will be using these eyes in a new video in the future. Please subscribe to stay up to date. Talk later.